Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate your time tonight. It was a really interesting discussion because revenue is really tough to find. Sales funnels are really challenged. The market is changing. Customers are changing. And you've got to remember that selling now and marketing has become primarily a technology and internet-based activity. And the internet is only 20 years old, and really the only last 5 years are the ones that matter. And these guys are experts, have more experience than a lot of people that have been in this for 20 years. So take that into consideration when you listen to the panel. I'm very thankful for all of their time tonight. What we're going to do is touch 4 areas. I think I'd like to learn a little bit more about what the challenges a lot of sales and marketing teams are facing. What's changed in terms of the consumer base? What's working? What are the tactics and the strategies that are helping sales and marketing teams to execute and to deliver for these big progressive companies? I think also, when we look forward, technology is coming that will really change the dynamic of how sales funnels are managed and marketing teams are organized. So, what are going to be the impact of things like AI and machine learning on what these guys are working on? So, finally, I think as the Dean mentioned, what are the traits that an alumni needs? What are the traits that a university needs to bring to students in order for them to be successful in this space? So, they're the 4 broad areas we're going to touch upon. Maybe just a quick question to the audience by a show of hands. Who here is working in sales or marketing at the moment? Okay. And maybe same hands again. Who has a marketing or a sales funnel that they actually have active at the moment? Okay. Okay, so this could be interesting for you. And how many recent graduates are here? Okay, we've got some graduates as well. Okay. So let's start by the challenges. I think for the panel, I think what's really interesting, I'd love to hear from the panel, is customers these days are very different, right? They don't answer their phone. They don't answer any emails. They don't watch broadcast TV. They have challenges interacting with people. They're not consuming traditional media. And the similar is true in the enterprise. So I'd love to hear from the panel's perspective on what has changed with their customers. Maybe Stephen, maybe you could start us off.
Sure. I think to start off with, I don't think people have changed necessarily. I think the people still have the same needs, wants, motivations, desires. I think what's really changed a lot is how we communicate. I think that's changed fundamentally. I think it's and the time we have to communicate is so short. You've got a fleeting attention span to capture somebody's attention, and I think that we communicate in so many different ways. It's all messaging apps or email is still a great channel. I think it's been abused by marketers like me, but I think that generally speaking, I said to Trevor when we started talking about this, my last 3 jobs I have not had a direct phone and the objective, our office manager's job was that no salesperson could ever reach us on the phone. That was the rule, right? And that I think that's changed a lot. I think as well what's changed is that there's no more. It's not like it was 20, 30 years ago where you would leave your work behind at 5 p.m. or 5:30 or whatever time you finished. I think work is now all the time. I don't think there's a divide really. I think that's a challenge that we all face, right? Is how do you know when to stop checking your email and checking Slack or whatever? So I think that's what I would say.
Kevin, have you found that as well from a sales perspective?
Yeah, well, I think if people didn't answer the phone or their email, we'd be in trouble. But I think it has changed. I think when I started this or in sales just myself 8 or 9 years ago, I came into an SDR role, so sales development role, or just generating opportunities, and it was that 70 or 80 phone calls a day, which definitely doesn't work anymore. That said, you've got to be able to take advantage of opportunities. People are not making phone calls anymore. If you think of yourself, if you're in a decision-making role at your company, how many phone calls do you receive in any given day? Very, very few, if any. How many emails do you receive a day? 15 or 20 sales emails on top of everything else. So, I think it's changed from that 70 or 80 calls a day, but thoughtful outreach, really doing your research up front and making a phone call where, the first line is the reason for my phone call is, and you're adding value there. we're definitely seeing that still be impactful.
So I mean, like Salesforce, for example, Julie, is one of the the great sales organizations, and have you found similar to what Kevin has mentioned?
Yeah, definitely. I think when Kevin mentioned like thoughtful outreach, that's 100% one of the most important things. Salesforce has been around now for about 18 years, and we started as like one product, a CRM. Over the years we've grown. We now have like multiple different products, and the only way that we were able to grow and actually keep having thoughtful outreach was by verticalizing. So I'm on the retail team. There's other people that are finance, healthcare. So I don't go into meetings just talking about Salesforce products. I go into meetings talking about the retail industry. I'm talking to my clients about the challenges that they're facing. And every outreach, whether that's an email or an event I'm inviting them to, it's specific to retail and what they're interested in discussing.
It's interesting that when you look at a marketing perspective or an advertising perspective, most of the money has gone into digital, into social, right? And companies like Snap and Facebook are the primary means to reach a lot of people. But Russ, do you think that do you think that a CEO is going to see a Facebook ad or a social ad, download it, and that's a way to access the enterprise, or what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, no, I definitely think majority of people I can imagine here all utilize Facebook to connect with people at home and to talk with, families and friends, and that's the same with all the funnel up, the money where it's kind of going is into this digital space. But kind of like to the guy's points, like attention is shifting away from, the screens always. A lot of CEOs these days, they're getting their kind of junior staffs or anybody servicing them to kind of funnel out those messages. So it's really like, how do we get in front of the right people with the right message at the right time? Because, it's never ever black and white these days. A lot of times with the advertisers that I work with, they're in the agency, but also with the clients, but there's a delicate balance. It's like, who's going to have the money that we're going to be able to capture? Am I going to try to talk to the client, but are they going to direct me back to the agency? So it's a big figuring it out game. You never ever know what's going to work for one client's going to work for the next. So it's constant about like learning and just adapting and, figuring out all these different ways to,
So I mean, based on that point, I mean, like, what are sales and marketing teams like currently doing wrong? Like, what do they need to stop? Maybe Stephen and Kevin, you can talk about that one.
Thoughtful outreach. I don't see very much of that. To be honest, like I get hit up with maybe it's probably 15 or 20 sales emails a day for mostly SaaS, software products, trying to marketing automation. And it's I would say it's less than 5% is really on point, the communications. I have to say I'm a former NewsWhip customer, and you guys do always, have to say, do a very nice job on your outreach, and you can pay me later. No, I think I think that's a big challenge for marketing and sales is to identify what is the right message and what is the channel that you're going to reach, and it's no longer that you're traditionally you would look at, I'm going to run this media campaign during these times. It's like you really have to be wherever your customer is when they're ready for you, and that's that makes your media planning very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe it's interesting that the marketing teams don't really feel that the customers are acting rationally. They'll launch, get their TV ad ready, digital campaign, everything, and then they'll go home and they'll turn on their ad blocker. They'll watch something on DVR, and they don't think the consumer necessarily is acting rationally, right? What do you think on that point, Kevin?
Well, just to Stephen's point, in terms of outreach, it's not that difficult to separate yourself, because if you think of all the sales emails you get, most of them are pretty poor. It's a template, they haven't put a huge amount of effort on the other side. So to separate yourself, it's really doing the research, like Julie says, being a subject matter expert and being able to add some value in that email. I think the big challenge people have in sales is that they feel it's a numbers game, and to an extent, obviously it is a numbers game, but there's a balance between it being a numbers game and you going and spending time creating quality and adding value. So and it's very simple just to say, we'll be thoughtful, but you can be very strategic about that as well. There are tools out there that will help you really manage the cadence based on, the ideal customer profile that you're going after and the typical model of someone who will close a deal with your company.
Yeah.
So you can be very strategic about how you start that conversation, but I think there's a tendency for salespeople to be lazy and just set up a campaign and blast out 50 emails and hope that 5% of them convert.
I mean, a few years ago, things like mail merges were an innovation, and personalization was key. But like, Do you think people understand that it's a robot or an automation on the other side now, and they're savvy to it, or what are your thoughts?
Well, like, you know, when I go through, say, my top prospects, for example, I really am putting thought into it. Like, in terms of, I'll break up even my top retail accounts in terms of maybe there's beauty, maybe there's you know, furniture. There's so many different themes there, and even within the accounts, I'm messaging differently, whether it's a CTO or the head of in store. So, you know, if that's coming from an automated system, do they mind necessarily? I'm giving them information that's relative to what they do, like their job, and the industry they work in. I don't necessarily think they're going to go, oh no, like it wasn't Julie that definitely pressed the button. Like sometimes it is me, but you know what I mean? Like I don't think necessarily that they're going to look at that and not read the content if it's very personalized to them and can help them in their job.
Do you think that, what are expectations of buyers now, Stephen? Do they expect to be sold to like this, or are they looking to be sold in a different way?
I think it's a mix of personalization and context. I think that's the key, right? I think it's easy. You know, most people now are doing first name personalization and across, you know, throughout the different communication channels. But I think it's that key, right? It's the on the other side, the sales or the marketing team really doing the proper understanding who their customer is and going deep on that, right? Doing the research, building out their customer profiles, and really getting into the psychology of why that customer might buy or might take that next step wherever you need them to do. And then I would agree with Julie. I don't think that people, if it's done right, your prospect shouldn't know that it's automated, right? It should be like that. Oh my, you know, and where it's done clumsily is you go out, you know, you might visit a website and, you know, 2 minutes later you get a phone call or you get an email saying, I saw you on our website 30 seconds ago, and that just freaks people out, right? It's like you have to do it, be a bit more thoughtful, and I think that's where the gap is right now. I think it's I don't know that it's fully. I think it's part laziness, but I also think it's that back to that numbers game and that challenge and that stress that people have is like you know there's an understanding all the way along when you're reporting in an organization. You have to have X number of leads, X number of qualified leads, and they're at this stage in the funnel to get to that magic customer number at the end. So at all the way along, you have to fill those buckets, right? And then it's very difficult to do, you know, to carve out the time and be strategic and be strong enough to say, you know what, I need to do this more, I need to do this less. That's saying no is the hardest thing, I think, for most people.
It's an interesting point that a lot of these kind of tactics were what growth companies were using over the last few years. Email automation, you know, phone calls, outbound, free. A lot of these are free methods, right? But I'm interested, Ross, like do people have to pay now for media to reach these enterprises? And you know, is there space for small companies to be able to use these tactics, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's definitely space for like companies with their organic presence trying to push it, but you know, if you really want to get in front of your like qualified audience, you're going to have to layer in that media to get that specific targeting. And you know, we see a lot of our advertisers that come to us, like some are like focused on the higher level metrics. You know, can we get cheap impressions? Can we get those people like to come to our site so we can track them and get them back? So you know, in using that media to your advantage, it is an investment, but it could be a good investment that pays off. You know, there's so many ways we can track users now across the board. Facebook, like every site that's pixeled, you put something in your Amazon cart, we know what you did. So, you know, it's all that information is there, and advertisers are using that to their advantages because they're going to make that a better experience then for you know, their audience they're targeting, but then also from like kind of like that sales perspective, you know, you're going to get those most qualified users as well.
You know, if you're looking at my cart, I'm buying 3-year-old ninja costumes. So I don't know what else you're going to sell to me based on what I've been buying recently. But let's just talk about maybe optimization, right? You can see, the audience can see, there's a lot of very educated, technically capable sales and marketing people now. It's a different generation, right? They're making market-driven decisions and driving a lot of innovation in this space. But the fundamental part of most sales marketing organizations is this funnel. You know, maybe Kevin, you could, just for the people who don't understand that, maybe you could give an outline of what is a sales funnel to you, and what do you think about when you're putting it together?
Well, I suppose we'll start with Stephen in terms of filling your funnel with leads or suspects. You know, those leads will come inbound in a number of different ways. Like people will request a trial for our platform, or they'll download a white paper based on the research we write about. So they're, you know, inbound marketing qualified leads. Trial requests being further down the chain than somebody who downloads a white paper and may not have an interest in using our technology just yet. And then we would have our salespeople working on outbound leads. So going out targeting what we call our zone of entitlement accounts, so accounts that we feel we should be working with, and really, going after the specific people we want to bring into that funnel, and then taking them through that process. So they would come in via marketing. The next step, we would have a sales development team who would speak with those people and look to develop a qualified opportunity to pass off to account executives in our team who would look to close business, and then it would go further to customer retention and keeping that business.
So Stephen, do you think that like marketing and sales have the same opinion of share the same views on what that funnel is? Certainly, I'm more sales orientated, but does marketing have a lot of issues? I think coordinating that belief.
I think that marketers don't do themselves any favors. I think that to use NewsWhip as an example, Salesforce as well. They're very, very sophisticated sales organizations, right? They've figured out that the relationship between marketing and sales is seamless. There's no friction there, and that's what successful companies, use. You can see it. That's what the hallmark of a really successful company is, that the marketing and sales, they're totally aligned. They understand what their goals are. The marketing team understand what type of prospects are going to convert at different points, and they really buy into that. They've helped develop that customer persona, right? I think where a lot of companies run into difficulty, and I've run into difficulty in previous companies, is that you ultimately you get paid, you get measured. Your performance review, if you're working in a larger company every year, you have certain goals to hit. So if you have X number of marketing qualified leads to hit, what does that mean, right? If you still have to hit that number, you're going to hit it. If it's a warm body and it's got a pulse, it's going into the funnel, right? That was qualified. So that's kind of where people start gaming the system a little bit. I think that's when really successful companies with great leadership are able to understand those potential points of friction and to say, no, this is the overall goal that we're all going to be measured on. But most companies don't do that.
I mean, just for the audience, maybe you guys can give a sense. Salesforce is enabling a lot of this, but how many vendors do you have in your funnel? How many people are either on email, CRM? What would you get a sense of how many vendors you're using?
In my marketing stack?
Yeah.
60 different companies.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating point. There's 60 different companies that have specific subject matter expertise that are all interconnected, and all of that data. Would you say the same in yours, Kevin?
It probably is close to that from a sales point of view. A lot less, but the marketers have more technology that they're leveraging in terms of generating that interest.
I just wonder, is there going to be more acquisition in that? Is Salesforce trying to, for example, do everything in that funnel, or is there a place for other vendors?
Yeah, I think, now we definitely offer everything. And more I'm seeing brands come on board, maybe 10, 15 years ago they started on CRM, and now they're using our email tool, advertising, e-commerce. So yeah, that's definitely been the strategy of Salesforce. We've either been building out new tools or acquiring other companies so that companies can have one platform to run their entire business.
So it's all about leads in many ways, though, from my perspective. I know it's about coordination, but maybe you guys could share just what have been your best and most successful ways to get the right leads into your funnel? Who wants to take that first?
I can take that one. So interestingly, I just started a new job about 3 weeks ago, but before that I was working for a consumer electronics company in the pet technology space, and we made it's like an Apple Watch for dogs that tracked activity and location. And it was really cool. It was great fun working there for almost 3 years, but what we found most successful as an acquisition channel was actually radio. Direct response radio ads converted like crazy. Facebook, interestingly, in the last 6 months, since they, in response to the GDPR stuff, which is very interesting, what's going to happen in that area is, Facebook converting ads, which had been very, very efficient and effective, have stopped performing. And I'm hearing that a lot with a lot of companies. What happened was Facebook had a partnership with Epsilon and Axiom and a bunch of other data companies that they stopped using. So that was able to do very, very granular targeting and identify. It was basically doing all your work for you very, very efficiently, and that doesn't work anymore. So you can't do income targeting on Facebook anymore. So it's very interesting what's going to happen when people are going to realize that Facebook is not effective as a channel anymore, what's going to happen next, you know?
Are you finding that, Ross? Has that been a similar
No,
challenge?
it's kind of like different with us because in terms of our platform on Snap, it's like a closed like garden. It's not like separated out to the world strictly on mobile. So we still offer all the targeting that a lot of that Facebook and stuff have deprioritized. You know, there's a lot of like purchase-based segments and income targeting that have kind of been removed from theirs, but we've been kind of ramping up a lot more and other like Nielsen audiences as well. But what we're seeing as well is like that stuff about the pixel is everything that advertisers want these days. They want to know, you know, we can get good CPMs. We can see that like we're driving reach to our site, but it's about like how do we re-engage the users that came to the site? How did they, you know, look at this part of the page and like why did they drop off? What kind of messaging can we give them next to like push them further down the funnel? So, you know, from targeting one person with one asset like creatively versus a different one is going to, you know, really drive two different results.
You know, I think, Stephen, you had worked in primarily like consumer, right? You're trying to get to consumers, where I think in your new role you're going to be more B2B. I think Kevin's more B2B, right? You're looking for enterprises.
Yep.
Has that been a big change to go, the mentality of bringing leads in from B2C into B2B?
That's what's really interesting, actually, is like I'm seeing like a really, you know, a blurring of the lines between B2C and B2B. You know, there's a lot of tactics that and strategies that I would use that were really kind of honed and developed in as, you know, B2B sales. Like a lot of content marketing stuff was very much created in the for B2B customers. I'm seeing like, you know, we would do a lot of that. So there's very similar. It's actually, you know, what I would say is I think the biggest challenge I have in day to day is attribution, right? How do I identify what dollar that I spent, what did that do, right? How do I understand, you know, what the impact of that was? And that's a challenge for everyone, every marketer that I talk to, and it's very difficult to do. You have to accept that if you get it 60% right, you're already similar to my grades in Smurfit, an A student.
So like what we're seeing kind of as very much a sales and marketing becoming one in many ways, right? They used to be really traditional silos, you know. Salespeople were good at talking, marketing people were, you know, good at design or something very traditional, out of date view of, but like, you know, what we're seeing now is really those departments being almost one. I mean, how have you found breaking down those silos between sales and marketing amongst your own teams? Like Kevin?
I suppose we're a small operation, and the commercial center of our business is in New York, so it's 20 people in New York. Most of sales and marketing sit in New York, so we're very much, you know, in each other's pockets. But we're very conscious of this. You know, our inbound engine runs on the content that we create. We're lucky in that we have this unique data set. For anyone who doesn't know NewsWeb, basically we've tracked every article that was created over the last 5 years and understand the performance of that article in terms of how people engage with it on social media. So we're able to write about different industries, whether that's the food industry or, you know, particular auto brands, and give an insight into how people are responding to content in those areas. So the fact that we have something unique that we can provide insight around drives a lot of people to, you know, read that and you know, we get them in the funnel and we look to push them down. But our content team don't create anything that they haven't got input on from the sales team. So, you know, when we started off this business, our customers were media companies like CNN, the Washington Post, New York Times, and they remain customers to this day, but the future for NewsWeb is PR. So we're going after now big PR agencies like Edelman, big corporate communications departments at big brands, rather, like Intel and Reebok, who would be clients. But again, when we create content, we think about, you know, what is the CCO at Reebok, you know, what does he care about? What are the challenges that those guys are facing, and how can we create content to draw in the CCOs from that space?
So are you moving to kind of more account-based marketing now?
For sure, yeah.
Maybe just for the benefit of the audience, you can maybe Stephen could help us here, like the difference between marketing and sales qualified leads, or how those relate or change in an accounts-based marketing operation.
Yeah, I think that the pace of change in industry now is just phenomenal, right? So you'll even like 18 months, 2 years ago, the marketing qualified leads, handing it off to sales qualified leads, that was the way. Whereas now it's, and it was really popularized, I think, by Marketo, and I see Adroll doing a lot, talking about it a lot. And account-based marketing is really just going after individual accounts and creating, you know, proper paths and communication and messaging for that individual and trying to do that at scale, which is very difficult because really what it is, it's one-to-one marketing, right? And that's very difficult to do and do in an automated way to try and get the volume and the scale that you need. It's very challenging.
Yeah, Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that point?
Yeah, well, look, our business, I suppose, has changed as well. You know, as I said, we were going after media companies initially, and they were coming in and paying us $300, $600 a month. For a number of reasons, we've moved away from that media market. It isn't they don't have the healthiest businesses themselves, and the opportunity for us, we felt, given the technology we had, was with corporate communications departments. Our avenue to corporate communications departments are the PR agencies. So we feel if we can create a beachhead with the top 150 PR agencies in the world, there will be a knock-on effect, and we can build a big business off the back of it. So with that, we are really hyper-focused on these 150 accounts, and everybody in the business, whether you're in sales and marketing or you're building product, is aware of who those companies are and what their needs are. So whether it's marketing, selling, or building product, we're account-based.
So, who do you guys think is doing a very good job in your space, or generally? I mean, Julie, you see loads of companies in retail across the board. Salesforce, I think, everyone is a customer of Salesforce. But who's doing a good job at the moment?
Yeah, I guess when I think about the retail space, Adidas is definitely one of the top retail brands that are using Salesforce for kind of everything. So whether you're on your Adidas mobile app, or you're on the website, or you're in store and someone's coming up to you with the iPad, behind all that technology is Salesforce. And the beauty of that then is that whether it is the marketing team at Adidas or the service team that you're asking about a return or an order, their information is right there in real time. So they're delivering this seamless, personalized, and convenient journey for their customers.
Ross, you work with a lot of brands. Have you found that also, or retail brands, or who's using social effectively at the moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of the brands that have been effective are kind of brands that actually like to listen to what we want to say, because a lot of the times it's they believe this is going to work or this isn't going to work. But for us, there's a lot of great examples, I think. Because the uniqueness of Snapchat is that we have augmented reality, so it's how can we do experiences that can augment the world with the brand, make it a fun experience for users, how we can make yourself become an influencer for your friends, how we can also give you those video ads as well at the right time with the right messages. So it's really about tailoring this personalized experience, letting the kind of algorithms in the background do its work. And we see a lot of great advertisers come to our platform with a few bits of creative, and we're we can rip it apart, stretch it in different ways, build out their different augmented reality, and we can make their campaigns into really successful in terms of driving that resonance and lifts with consumers, that they actually remember the brand, and there's definitely going to be hopefully intent down the line.
Okay. So when you guys look to 2019, what do you think, which acquisition channels are going to be the most interesting for you based on all of this? Go from the end. Yeah.
I think that for me, it's going to be, I think making some bets in using direct mail, some traditional, some print, some radio, and that's what I have seen a very big impact with. I think it's very, very difficult. I think that the other digital channels augment that. So I think you can really accelerate your reach and using traditional media, and then what I've seen is that improves the performance of all your digital channels. Whereas if you're just focusing on digital only, you end up kind of nibbling around the edges. Really, you're kind of growing incrementally. You're not really growing at the rate that you need to be. So that's where I think I'm going to be spending probably 70% of my budget next year.
Anybody else have an opinion on acquisition channels for 2019? What do you?
Well, email has been really strong for us, just in relation to that account focus, in that we create this valuable valuable content. If we can target the specific people, via email, we've seen a strong return in relation to getting them into the funnel.
Do you guys use LinkedIn at all?
LinkedIn, yeah, there's a strong. It has a strong impact, but it's very expensive. So you got to spend a lot of money on LinkedIn to really see the return. So it's not something that is a core focus of ours.
So, when we look to the future a little bit, there's a lot of new technology coming down the line, like AI, machine learnings, like a lot of these terms are being used, but how are they really going to impact the sales funnel? Is anything exciting coming down the line? Maybe from a Salesforce has been investing heavily in like AI. Is that going to change anything around lead generation or help the funnel?
Yeah, I think honestly, like even today, we all the salespeople in the company are using AI. Like I'll log in first thing in the morning, and our AI tool is called Einstein. Einstein will pop up and tell me these are the opportunities you should focus your time on. Even when I go into opportunities, there's ones that I, in my mind, think are going to close this month. I'm, happy with how they're going. Einstein will give me the score, let me know, oh no, this is not looking good this month. It'll tell me the reasons why. And again, that's the AI in the background learning from deals that are similar to this one. And it could be, maybe I'm not dealing with the right person. Maybe this product hasn't, been successful within the retail industry. So all of these insights that I would never have been able myself to learn. So I think that already is something that we're all using every day.
Anybody else have a perspective on new stuff on the funnel?
Yeah, I think. Well, sorry, Stephen, go ahead there.
No, go ahead. I've been talking
I think these tools are all going to be about optimizing salesperson's time. So I think I saw a stat recently that 47% of salespeople's time is spent on non-selling activities. So it's about reducing that 47%. Time is literally money as a salesperson. So as Julie's talking about there, I don't think the AI is going to be about the robot selling you or the robot creating really thoughtful emails and bringing you into the process. It's going to be about setting up a cadence based on your ideal customer profile and modeling that out. When you should make that phone call, when you should send the email, when you should link in on LinkedIn, and that'll all be based on historical data. So we're gathering all that in Salesforce right now in terms of what is the cadence in terms of a deal, but we're not really utilizing it in a smart way, and that's where I think AI will have a big impact.
Yeah, it's like I've seen some other stats that the customers want to educate themselves about the products first, right? They don't really want to talk to a salesperson anymore. So it makes me think, what's the purpose of the salesperson in that respect? Will salespeople have a different role going forward? Is maybe to continue to close deals, or will they be doing less prospecting or less? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think salespeople are going away. I think a lot of those, meeting scheduling and a lot of that data entry, the machines will start to pick up on that, but people still want to buy off people, especially in relation to enterprise technology. Maybe we would prefer to buy our groceries online and all of that, but in terms of enterprise technology where you're spending, 50 grand to a couple of million a year, you're not going to buy that off a machine. So I think all of the optimization will be in relation to increasing the amount of time people can spend actually speaking to people as opposed to data entry or scheduling meetings, etc.
Ross, are the robots taking over in Snap or?
Soon enough now. It'll all be augmented. But kind of like, to Kevin's point, I really think, from my perspective, because I'm mostly selling with advertisers who we've built strong relationships with. We've already run campaigns, so it kind of varies, but I really feel that lead gen where you can get users in to experience your platform, and then you're just hey, I'm here, I can support you. Here's the certain steps that what are you trying to achieve? Because there's a lot of times you go into a software and you not really know how to use it because there's so many different bells and whistles, especially with Salesforce. You guys kind of pioneered the game with Chatter, where it's you brought social media into the business world, which is now how every company is going to operate. So internal communications is going to get a lot easier, which is going to make it a lot more fluid as well for sales.
Do most of your sales funnels, when it gets to the end and you close the customer, do you continue that on from an account perspective, or is it a lot of companies just consider them to be sold and that's the end of it? What are your opinions on how support and account management play into how you structured your funnel, Kevin, maybe?
Well, from our point of view, with this account focus, the person who closed that initial deal will still continue to try and expand that account. They will be assigned a customer success manager, and they'll be very much, their initiative is to renew that account next year. So they'll be doing everything they can to keep that client happy. But in terms of expanding that account, that will still be down to the initial account exec who closed the deal. Now that's just how we do it. Other companies may have a clean handoff and customer success are responsible for expanding, but for us, it's with the A.
It's interesting that leadership teams look at customer support as like a cost, and really it's a marketing opportunity, a sales opportunity. I don't know. Have you, Stephen, thought about that from a support perspective?
Yeah, we did a lot of research around our churn, when I was at my previous company, which was really, it was like a B2C. It's like a phone company, really. So you had an annual plan that you would have to buy, a data plan for this smart collar. And what we've discovered was that we could predict the churn rate based on the experience that people had with customer service in the first 8 days. We could tell after 8 days whether they want to renew or not. After a year, we could tell within the 95%. It was 95% accurate. With we could say, right, this person's on this plan, they're going to churn in month 6. And it was like, so that experience post sale is so important. It's almost more important than the initial sale, because people expect that they're going to be treated well, like a VIP, through the process until they close, and then they're kind of expecting to be forgotten about. But what companies that are really successful, that if they do it differently, and they really like Zappos is the company that comes to mind, right? It's like they go to they're available. That mostly customer service. And marketing in my previous company, we owned customer service. That was how we viewed it. That was how important it was. It was like an arm of the marketing team, and that it was all about learning about how your product, what was wrong with your product, how you could fix it, and it was all about that churn, how you can get that below a certain percent, because your business is going to live or die by that.
Mm-hmm. Salesforce very strong on the customer support side. Do you guys spend a lot of time with existing customers?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like if I close a deal, I become the account manager essentially with that client. And I think it's key, especially you put all that time into learning everything about the client's business. And it makes sense for Salesforce to keep me on, because I want to grow the account, I want to introduce them to other products. I couldn't agree more. The success managers are so helpful, because when they come in, the client doesn't see them as a salesperson like they do with me, and they're there as support, and quite often they're the ones turning around to me saying, oh, there's actually an opportunity here for service or for marketing or whatever. But yeah, I think without them, we'd be seeing a lot more attrition. So I think they're key to the whole process.
So as we kind of come to this kind of conclusion section around education, I'll give you an anecdote. Is when I was in school, and there was people would come in and talk about careers. There was doctors, accountants, lawyers, and there was no sales training, no marketing career day. And I came back 20 years later, and 150 people were in sales and marketing, right? But they've gone through second level and third level without actually having any kind of formalized training to do all of the quite complicated, specific things that you've all been talking about. I'd love to just reflect on that for a second, because educational institutions like UCD are trying to prepare people for the types of jobs that we are all doing. But what are the traits of a good graduate now at the moment? What kind of traits are you looking for them to join your sales or marketing team? Maybe Kevin, what's a good salesperson right now?
I suppose what we look for when we're hiring salespeople, and this has probably come from experience over time and reading books and everything else, but when they're coming for a specific sales role, we're looking for some sort of passion, whether that's in relation to our company, which is unlikely because they're early in the process, but they have a passion about something, whether that's a hobby or whatever it is. But I think people buy off people who are passionate for what they're doing, and trying to isolate that is important for us. Then a drive, and that drive, with sales, people often say, oh, they have to be hungry for money, and I don't think that's it at all. I think that the best people that we've seen come through our door have had this drive to be successful, to overachieve their target, to be the top salesperson in the team, to progress and move on in the company. And the last one is kind of coachability. So ability to take on advice from people who have been there the previous years, what's worked. And we'll do a little test for that in the process, maybe not in the first interview, but when they come back, we might do a mock call, give some feedback, do it again, and if that hasn't been taken on board, it's just an early signal that this person has their way of doing it, and they're unlikely to kind of bend to what's been working in the company. Do
you think there's any part of their education that has helped to prepare them better, or are you looking at them as a clean sheet that you have to mold?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not something we really look at their education. It's probably their past work experience. If they're brand new out of college, It's, you know, have you had a part-time job? You know, tell us about that part-time job. Have you showed any kind of enterprise, you know, in your years leading up to this point? The college is important, but as you say, you know, there is no real equivalent application to be applied. You want people to be really smart, you know. Again, as Julie said, you want these people to be subject matter experts and really to go and be smart on the competition, be smart on the industries. So that's something obviously, you know, you can judge from their path in
Are they more analytical
education.
then to that point? I mean, all of these platforms and funnels are all very much metrics driven. There's a sea of data. Is the kind of modern salesperson like a much better with data, do you think, or has to be?
Well, I suppose from our perspective,
Yeah.
because we're a data company,
Yeah.
I think that is important. So yeah, I think that comes down to their smarts and then their ability to articulate what they're trying to say. So yeah, analytical for sure, numbers driven. You know, often obviously if they're a new graduate, they don't have much to reflect on. If they're coming from another sales role, how well do they understand their numbers from their previous role? You know, where were they against target? You know, what did they need in their own personal funnel to hit their goal? If they're able to kind of talk you through that, you know that they're numbers driven and they have a process to achieve results.
It's really interesting. Is Stephen, you think the same is true of a good marketing person right now, or?
Well, I think it's slightly different. I think that when I'm recruiting and to think about it in terms of how you could do that or deliver or improve that in a formal education setting, you know, the soft skills, I try and look for two traits for a good, like, great marketers are curious about the world that they live in. They're curious about lots of random stuff, and you want to try and drill that down into that. And then they've got empathy, and that's like a really important skill, I think, because you have to really get into the mind of your customer if you want to market to them effectively. So on the soft side, I'm not sure how you build that into a course in Smurfit, but I think that they're really, really important. And then on the technical side, you know, I look for you know, at a minimum that they're AdWords certified, Facebook that they've done some sort of Facebook ads stuff, or they've are Google Analytics certified, because that would show me that they're committed enough to their career, that they've, you know, trained up to a certain level. I actually really believe that the analytical piece can be coached in anyone. I think that it's a very straightforward skill set that you can train people to do.
So, you know, Snap and Salesforce are two of the best employers in the world. You know, I've seen some recent reports. How did you feel in terms of your experience there about how they looked at you as an employee and trained you as you came into those two companies? Was there anything interesting that you have found that you brought into your own recruitment process?
Yeah, I would say, so I maybe about 2 years in Salesforce, just under 2 years. So I was going into Salesforce with sales experience, but not tech sales experience. And it definitely was like an uphill battle, because they were like, but you've never sold tech before. And I was competing against people who were coming from Oracle, coming from Facebook and whatnot. And I really just tried to focus on what I did have versus some of the other applicants, and that was when I kind of focused on my knowledge of the industry and the retail side of things. I will say, like, I'm shocked the amount of interns that we get in at Salesforce. Like, people are working there during the summer, going back to college, doing it again the following year. And it's great because they're building up like rapport with management who will probably hire them once they're finished college. So I think that real life kind of doing internships, or even, you know, I did the MSc Marketing and Practice in Smurfit, and we were working with clients like day in, day out. And that's how most of us ended up moving into jobs. Like, those people ended up hiring us. So
I think that's an important difference, though, to point out about the internship kind of model here, is you get college credit for doing internships, so you're motivated to go and do it because it counts towards your end degree. So you get, and that is, you know, it's a great source of cheap labor for companies here, but it's also you've got motivated students then, because you're getting 3 credits for your summer internship. So it kind of softens the blow if you're working for free, and I think that Ireland is different. I think it's and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you wouldn't get course credit for my summer jobs.
If only my microeconomics professor gave me a partial credit for playing for UCD soccer team, I would have been very happy, you know. So, but Ross, have you found the same thing with your graduates? Everybody wants to go to Snap, right?
Yeah, like I think it's like just the nature of like kind of how business is. Like tech is like a really interesting space to be in right now. You know, things are constantly changing. But you know, kind of when I started at Snap, it was a very reserved type of buying versus like self-serve automation. And it's kind of like I've been there 2 years now and seeing that transition. Like my role has dramatically changed from what I was doing day one to what I'm doing right now. So you know, talking about all of the optimizations and things like that, we're solution managers right now. We're not like, you know, we're focusing more on like kind of how to grow these businesses, but in terms of like, you know, how we're interviewed and like kind of the traits and stuff that Snap like to do, it's like, are you kind, smart and creative? And you know, kind of touches on what everybody said, you know, kind, are you going to be that like good person to work with, you know, from a client side, internal side, you know, are you going to be able to work with that person to 12 o'clock at night? Like, you know, that's that important thing. Creative as well, you know, what innovative ways can you like think to activate your client? What other ways can, you know, you can get them to think differently versus like what they used to do? And then what was the last one? Kind, smart. Yeah, and just like, you know, are you a quick thinker, smart? You know, are you able to handle these like quick optimizations on the fly, and you know, help your clients see success? So I kind of feel across all of those. But you know, as salespeople, you know, when you go out to the market, I think the most important thing is to really consciously listen at what the issues and problems are, and are to ask the right questions. Because at the end of the day, you can talk, but you don't know what actually they really need, what the service that you need to provide them. You know, what are their objectives? What do they need to achieve? So, you know, we really want to pride ourselves on that kind of listening.
Excellent. Well, if you're wondering why people are not answering your emails, it's because you need to do all of this. So I really want to thank the panel for their expertise tonight, and just fascinating listening to their different perspectives. So thank you all very much. Okay. Good.